As a way of warning, this episode does touch on the topics of child physical and sexual abuse. If these topics are triggering, please consider whether this episode is right for you.
Welcome to the Mormon to Medium podcast. I'm here with my hot husband, Brad.
Hello. We are going to continue our conversation with Drew, and you get to hear the answer to the question that Nan left off on last episode.
Wait, what was the question? I forgot.
Well, if you want to find out, you're just going to have to listen.
Welcome to the Mormon to Medium podcast, where we'll talk about spirituality, the paranormal, religion, and my journey going from Mormon to medium. I'm Nanette and Brad. Thanks for listening. Now let's go have some fun.
Don't be afraid. Close your eyes. There's a moon overhead, but the sun will rise. Blood on our lips, such a poisonous bite. The sound of our hearts go bump, bump, bump in the night.
Did you ever wonder, this just popped into my head, did you ever wonder if your neighbors, people in your ward, knew you were being abused and just kept their mouth shut?
They absolutely knew.
So you were, because I felt the same way. Like my mom's neighbors and all of my neighbors knew it was always happening, but never said anything or would do anything. So in a way, being re-victimized by everybody, just watching these children being abused.
Well, the ring of pedophiles that was doing what they were doing, that included my sister and other members of the ward, had stake high councilmen on that.
Wow.
Shut the front door.
And one
What?
of them ended up in the Pennsylvania State Prison and died there.
Good.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, there's one other person, I don't want to get into their name or who, but there's one other person that was never held accountable. And then my sister ends up taking her life in 2011, largely a result of having gone through all that and never dealing with it and then making life choices
closure,
that reflected the objectification of her sexuality and her identity.
So sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was really tragic.
Heartbreaking.
Well, and that's what that tattoo is all about right there, the guitar. People think I like music. I'm like, no, that's about my sister.
That's your sister, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right there. All that's her.
That's her.
Yeah. So, yeah, she'll be the first person I hug in heaven. I promise you that. So, if there is a heaven, I don't know. Maybe,
There is.
Maybe I'll never see her again. I don't know.
It's not a heaven like we are taught in any religion, but there is.
She never got to live her life. And so, going back to my daughter real quick, one of the things I wrote, and you can read it on my Facebook, but I wrote a piece called Gone Too Soon, probably the most popular piece I've ever written. And at the end of it, I said, I will raise my daughter to have the life you never did.
Oh,
So,
Wow.
what a tribute to your sister. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's deep.
yeah.
It's okay.
And so
Feel
far
it.
I have. She's a beautiful 9-year-old girl, and she will never know that life because I'll kill the person that looks at her wrong. So, well, I shouldn't say that. I would want to, but
Right.
I will do harm to anybody that harms my children. But she is being raised very well, and it's the spirit of what my sister never had that guides that.
Yeah.
And I do. I don't pray, but I often think about my sister, and sometimes I'll say, Laurie, what should I do? And I'll say, God. Say, Laurie, what should I do?
Almost like you have guiding spirits and
Well, I did it the
a
other
team
day.
to help out.
I did it at Corey's grave the other day. I just sat there and said, Corey, how do I get through this, man? Just 3 days ago, watching the sunrise, coming home from another officer's grave, and thought I better go say hi to Corey, and it was powerful. Sometimes the answers are instant. Sometimes I just wait for things to come in through the day, and then I go, oh, that's an answer. Does that make sense?
Oh, 1,000%. I was just going to ask you how you get your answers. Like, is it a feeling? Is it a thought? Is it?
They're thoughts. I'm a very verbal, my love language is words of affirmation. And if we want to go into that paradigm, and so I just believe that whatever powers and forces are out there realize that for me, they're going to have to speak. They have to use language. And sometimes I'm guided to language in books, audible books that like I listened to on the way down here. And I went, I've never thought about being unattached like that. This idea that we don't externalize our happiness, that we internally derive it. Because this religion teaches us that. It says God is out there. And if we check this box and we do these things, the locus of control is always outside of ourselves.
Right.
And that's bad. The locus of control should be internal.
It is.
But
It should be.
we're raised to believe that if we check this box and we do this thing and we keep this bishop happy, and if we go on the mission and we get married in the temple, and if we give enough money, that this God someplace that never took the time to come save my sister from being raped, but would help a kid find their teddy bear, I don't have time for that God.
You don't pray to find your keys?
No.
Thought everybody did.
I'm the one that lost them. That's probably on me.
I've been to fast and testimony meeting, and I know that God
Right.
finds people's keys.
Right. And like I said, God would help people find their keys, but not stop a kid from being raped by one of his own stake high councilmen. But apparently he used the Spirit to call them to that calling. So
Well, it's
I
the
don't
power
have
of
time for
discernment.
Wow.
I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
People don't want to
I'm
have
with
that
you.
conversation with me because I'll eviscerate them.
Yeah.
I will flip that script so fast to them and make them very uncomfortable.
Well, and
I'm
you know
not
what?
going to be
That's okay.
nice about it. I'm not.
You don't need to be.
No.
Not at all.
No, it's insulting to me
Yeah.
when people talk like that. I'm like, yeah, God can be whatever he wants to be to you, but this is the version of God I encountered. And until you can explain that, we don't have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Don't tell me he's omnipresent, all loving. He's not.
So what took you from, hey, I'm this fresh-faced BYU, student going through the school.
He was a
and
Zuby.
He was a
So
Zuby
here's-
is what
yeah,
they call them. to going, all right, and now I'm done. This doesn't jive.
I think if I can go back, I think the BYU experience is worth talking about for a minute.
Okay.
Because it is the watershed moment of my life academically. It is the watershed moment. It's where everything changes. So if you grow up poor and you grow up in the environment I do, and you grow up being abused and you don't have any therapy and you have all these broken ideas about who you are and you don't feel good about yourself, you have no self-esteem, not to mention this smile is not the smile I had. I grew up with no dental care. Like, I don't know if you know what I had to go through to get this smile, but it's pretty amazing. But I was so not confident and I had no help in college. But I'll remember, and here we go with divine intervention again, right? I remember in 1992, I was done. So I had come home from the mission, started sleeping around, breaking the law of chastity, wouldn't you know, and just didn't get anybody pregnant.
Now, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Doing that is akin to murder.
I know. But I was, here I am, this 22-year-old kid hot off a mission full of hormones. And if I'm the only anomaly that's ever done that, well, I guess I should be interviewed for this podcast, right? But sadly, I'm not. You just did it before your mission. I did it after.
Exactly.
Neither one of us is better here.
It's all about timing.
You figured shit out sooner than I did, but
And I jumped right back into it.
oh, did you?
So,
Well, God bless you. You had to save yourself, right? You had to go do the
Yeah,
right thing,
and everyone else.
so you could be absolved. Yeah, how'd that work?
Yeah. Well, and on a former podcast, I talked about that, and I think part of that was just so I could be like, F you to my ex's family, who has always had to tell her how horrible I was.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So I came back from the mission, and I knew I was making bad choices. And I was like, and I believed the church up to this point. I didn't know what I know now, obviously. And I thought, I'm going to get my life right. And God, I'm just going to come out here and I'm going to trust you with my life. I packed everything I had in 2 suitcases, bought a one-way ticket on a Greyhound bus. Sound like a Simon and Garfunkel song, right? and I ride off across America. And I get off and I get let off at the Temple Square in the middle of the night. Nobody. And I sleep in a hotel. I get a bishop's voucher and I work in Temple Square for a week at Welfare Square. And I'm just this poor, needy 22-year-old trying to figure out his life. But I'm like, I can't live in Pennsylvania. I can't be around my mom. I can't be around my dad. I had to categorically reject everything I'd ever been given and literally go be out on my own with nothing.
Wow.
I had no money, no job, nothing. And so I love telling this story to my kids. I told it to them last year coming home from a BYU basketball game. I'll never forget my football player, just looking at me like, damn, Dad. Now look at you. And he goes, you have your own home. You've got this cool bar. And like, it was a really tender moment.
Yeah.
And And I don't think he realized that I'm like, all I ever wanted to do was have a family. And I just all I ever wanted is for my kids to know that they're loved and they're cared for, and they'll never be hit. They'll never be told they're stupid. They'll never be sexually abused. And I'm not rich, but they'll have their medical and dental needs met. And I've done that. I've never failed to make a payment on anything. I have money in the bank. I'm not rich again, but I've taken care of my kids. I gave my kids every measure of childhood I never had.
Good for you.
And it feels good.
Yeah.
And that's the hero's arc, right? The Joseph Campbell reference, the great anthropologist, but that's my heroic arc.
Some of us aren't quite as academically inclined as you. I have no idea who that is or what you're talking about.
He's a really good writer.
So, although when you start,
I'm such a
right?
nerd.
Although when you were talking about books, instantly what came to my mind is a scene from Hamlet. What are you reading? Words, words, words. I'm pretty sure that's your favorite scene in the entire play.
Words, words, words. Anyhow, yeah, the heroic arc. It could be Jung. I don't know. Anyhow, but I always thought about that, and I hope I'm a hero to my kids, right? I don't need to be a hero to anybody else. But I've had lots of people say, you should tell your story. It's really cool. I think it is, but I also think it's mundane. And in a lot of ways, I think a lot of people have had the same story. A lot of people go on to do some really amazing things and have been through much worse.
But a lot of people are afraid to be as vulnerable as they need to be to tell that story. And that's what makes it amazing. Because if you can be vulnerable and tell that story, then it becomes relatable.
That's so true.
And I think you're right there.
Look at me.
So I go on the mission. So now I'm at BYU and I'm going, but I know how I did in high school, right? I know I didn't do well, and I'm not. And then I start to doubt myself. And now my mom's voice is running space in my head again, and I can't do this. And I'm around. I'm over on 9th East and King Henry apartments in Provo, Utah, or by that I'm at Roman Gardens, I think was the name of the place, and I'm living there in student housing, but I'm not a student, right? So I'm around the whole academic college milieu, and I'm seeing all these smart kids, and I'm like, I want to be a part of this, but I had no help. I have no family.
Right.
I'm working at Friar Tuck's at the University Mall. I
loved Friar Tuck's.
Remember that?
They had the best deep fried mushrooms
and the scones.
And
Scones, yeah. And I was the guy making them.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
I was just working fast food. I was barely making enough to pay my half of rent to share a bedroom with a stranger that was rotating every semester. But I was starting to do it, right? And then I ended up getting a job at JCPenney. And I'm able to start working and save. And now I've got benefits. So now I can take care of it. This is back when you could work 30 hours for a place like JCPenney and have full-time benefits, right? And so now I'm able to start taking care of myself medically. And I finally said, I want to go to school. And I thought, I have no idea how I'm going to do this because I couldn't save enough money for school. And I realized by this time I'm like 26. And so I've been back from my mission 4 years, and I've been out at BYU for 3 of those 4 years. And I'm just now starting to save some money. And I'm like, wait, I can get FAFSA or I can get student loans. It's not based on anything my parents made. I've been on my own long enough back then. And so I applied for a Pell Grant. Somebody was watching me and knew that I wanted to go to school. And this is back when UVU was, I think, UVSC. It could have even been UVCC before it switched to UVSC.
It probably was.
It probably was in 92. But I remember it being yellow and blue. So I think it is UVCC. But I applied and I got accepted. And somebody had sent me this. Let me go back real quick. Somebody sent me a check in the mail 3 weeks before school. To this day, I'll never know who it was. But I remember I was praying. This is why I always think there's something going on, right? It was $1,200. And the message said, we know who you are. We love your story. We want to see you be successful. This is your first tuition. So, $1,200 in 1992 paid tuition for 4 classes and left me money for books. Yeah.
Wow.
So I ended up 4.0ing my first semester. Then I 4.0 the next semester. So now I have 16 college credits, core classes with a 4.0. So I apply for the presidential scholarship at UVCC and I get it and I never pay for school again.
Wonderful.
And so a lot of things happened because of that. Somebody took a risk with $1,200 and revealed the scholarship student in me and revealed the scholar in me. And I've turned into this voracious student. And I'm working 30 hours a week, mind you. Still working 30 hours a week and maintaining this GPA. I ride the bus everywhere. I don't have a car.
Wow.
I never did all through college. I rode the bus everywhere. and I put myself through school.
Well, and that's a big route to go from 9th East all the way to
Damn right it is.
UVU.
I'm up every morning at 5:30, and then I'm trying to figure out how to eat during the day. I don't have a cooler, and I've got to go catch the bus from the Wilkinson Center up to the mall to go work and then get back home, and hopefully it's not too late. It was just crazy. But I did this for 5 years. Well, so the day comes, I have my Rudy moment. I call it my Rudy moment. When I applied to BYU, I'd been 4 semesters at UVSC, or by that time it was UVSC, and I graduated with like a 3.98 from there.
Nice.
And I apply to BYU, and they immediately accept me, and they offer me a full ride. They call it that was some lady's name scholarship. Anyhow, I remember I wanted to have my moment, and so I got off the bus, and I kept the letter. It came in the mail to my apartment. I kept it. And I knew that I thought it would be either a rejection or acceptance letter to BYU. So I got off at the Wilkinson Center, and I sat in front of what then was the J. Reuben Clark Law School there. And you could walk over this walkway from the Wilk to that. And there was a bench over there. And I sat there just like Rudy did, sitting at the front of the lake in the movie. When he finally gets accepted the 3rd time, right? And I read it and I just start to cry. Same thing. You know, you've been fully accepted. We are offering you a full ride scholarship. And
That's amazing.
The rest is history. You know, I took some really difficult classes, some really challenging classes. I ended up graduating, I think, with a 3.96 from Brigham Young University.
Which is a big deal. BYU is
Magna cum laude.
Very difficult school, A, to get into, and B, to graduate from.
And I graduated top 5% magna cum laude. So I graduated with honors from BYU in science. So I mean, now I have this piece of paper that says, Mom, you're so wrong.
Right.
I'm not dumb, Mom. It was, you talk about a transcendent moment. Like, it was proof to myself that that kid I believed I was. I remember sitting on this doorstep, or sitting on the stairs in an apartment in Hershey, Pennsylvania, just studying while Mom's in there screaming and yelling, going, I've got to pass this test. And that's the way it was. I was always riding the bus or walking to the Harold Bealey Library or wherever I was, going, I am going to do this fucking thing if it kills me. But I'm doing this. Nobody else in my family has done this. Nobody, I think I was the only one to graduate high school. My other siblings, I think, went back and did their GED at one point. But then I went on and had the audacity to think I could do college, and look what I did. And the thing is I say that not to boast, but because all I ever wanted was a means to change my socioeconomic trajectory, right? Mm-hmm. I wanted a means to be able to provide a different type of life for both myself and the people that would be brought into my sphere of influence, namely my kids and my wife at the time. And I did that. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that I've had one job and one address for 25 years now, or 23 years. My kids have only ever known one mom and one dad. And even though we're not married, we're very united in their co-parenting, and they're all thriving. And there's a whole other story there. But, so yeah, do I wish I could still be married and be happy and be doing this with their mom? I mean, if that's what was supposed to work out. But Ashley's much happier now than she ever was. And I honor that. I celebrate that. And it makes her a better mother.
Right.
It makes her better show up to this co-parenting thing. And I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
Well, and you absolutely should be proud of where you are now, because from where you came, and you know it as well as I do, most people in those situations do not.
They never get out of the ghetto.
They stay in that environment because they think that's all they are. Yeah. And they don't realize there's so much more. There's so much more.
The irony is that it was the LDS church that told me I was better than that. So, again, it's this and that. It's not either or. Mm-hmm. The church isn't totally bad. Their theology, I think, is harmful. But there were people that modeled, I think, as you said earlier about Christ, I think there was people that took to heart that message and imbued themselves and others around them with a sense of that. And they saw, my goodness, they saw this little boy that they knew was in a bad home. And this woman who took me in with her husband and her 3 boys, all of them were, I think, Benson scholars at BYU, all smart kids. They saw that in me. I just couldn't see it in myself. And for years, even though I'd gotten this degree and I'd gotten on, you saw this a bit in the academy when you were my trainer, I just still wasn't confident. Yeah. I wasn't. I mean, if there was anything that really stuck out in my law enforcement career, it was just that I knew I wasn't as confident as I needed to be as an officer. I am now, but I wasn't always. And I think it really started when I did my LEO.
I think the bigger part was you're just too fucking smart, because you'd get into a situation and you'd start analyzing it
I
and
wanna
thinking
argue.
it through
Yeah,
and
yeah.
going, okay, there are 5,000 possible endings to this scenario. If I do A, B, and C, I'll get X, Y, and Z. But
you're
if I do
killing me.
1 and 5, I'll get 3 and
'Cause
6.
He's not wrong. He's
And
not wrong.
I remember going,
Make a decision.
stop overthinking it and just act.
Yeah.
You're just too smart.
Okay. That's hilarious because it's so true. It's so true. Yeah. I wrote the book on analysis paralysis. In fact, that may be my memoirs, analysis paralysis. But so anyhow, I just was never this confident kid, and I was always faking it, and it showed up for a while there in my law enforcement career. But as a parent as well, I would just get to situations with my kids, and I was like, fuck, I don't know what to do here. Because
parenting's hard.
but here's the thing. If you grow up in the environment that I do, and the abusiveness, you categorically reject everything out of hand, right? So
Right.
I know what not to do, but that says nothing about what to do.
Right.
And so I'm like, I know what I want to smack the shit out of this kid, right? But you can't do that. And I really don't want to hit my kid, but you feel that kind of frustration, right? And that's not going to solve anything. But I'm like, I don't know what to do.
You don't have the tools to know what to do.
I'm trying to manage finally unpacking all of my trauma, and I've got babies in my arms. How many parents has this ever happened to? Like all of them, right?
Yeah.
And so here I am trying to figure out how to be a better parent, trying to figure out how to be a good parishioner, good Mormon, right? And unpack all of this yuck. And then January 30th, 2014 comes. And there it is.
Yeah.
And I can't do it anymore. So.
And I'm going to stop you right there.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Mormon to Medium podcast. We'll continue talking to Drew about how his faith crisis led him to where he's at next week.
And as we finish this interview up with Drew, you're really going to see how some of these connections are far reaching. Not only do they impact just him, but some of the ripples from Nan's life move out and affect Drew in the way that he thinks about things.
So thank you for your support. Thank you for listening and taking your time. Let us know if you have any questions and if you'd like to support the show. And we will see you
On the other side of the veil.